Don Stanley here with Mr. Nick Westergaard from Brand Driven Digital, and what we're talking about today, Social Brand Forum 2014. How you doing today, Mr. Westergaard?
I am great, Mr. Stanley. Glad all is well up in Badgerland.
Yeah, excellent. It's excellent up here. Getting excited about fall camp starting for football and the start of the school year. Sounds like in the West Division this year, my Badgers and your Hawkeyes are picked to be battling it out. We're going to leave Jay Bear's Huskers out of this. So
pretty much a non-starter there.
But one of the things that we've been working on is better relations between our states. And one of the things that I want to do this year is bring a contingent of Badgers down to your Social Brand Forum event. So I wanted to talk to you today about the event that's coming up and hopefully inspire multiple people, but also a number of my fellow Badgers here in the state of Wisconsin to make the trip down to Iowa. So let's chat about your event.
Absolutely. Well, for those that don't know, this is the third year. Don, I think you've been there since the beginning.
That's right.
We first met at one of Jason Fall's Explore events in Minneapolis. And, I'd noticed as a speaker, as a Midwestern marketer, that I was going to all these great events that I love and meeting smart people like you. But I always joke that it took me a while to realize that there was nothing like that. It was kind of right in our backyard, about the closest you could get. I mean, that's why I was thankful when they did that Explore event in Minneapolis. But otherwise, it's Chicago, if you're lucky. But beyond that, most things happening in San Francisco, in Boston. And I mean, it's hard to get to, both in terms of logistics. All of our larger urban friends who can't believe that we take connecting flights places, but we do out of necessity. And also in terms of getting teams there. At best you can send a person to one of those bigger events, and then they kind of have to come back and play telephone, and they didn't hear what you heard, and you've kind of got to make another sale internally. Mm-hmm. So what we started doing back in 2012 was testing out if we could support an event right here in the Midwest, and that was the very first Social Brand Forum. And it was our hypothesis proved out, mm-hmm. and we've sold out every year. We've grown every year, and here we are at our third year for this event. And kind of the last thing, and kind of the 1,000-foot up that I'll say, especially in thinking back to the beginning, is out of necessity we did a single track event. Mostly for budget reasons, to see if this works out. We don't want to try to support, a second set of speakers, breakout rooms, and all of that. What we realized after the fact was that in our feedback, having the event be single track was something that attendees valued most about the event, because, as they're there with teams, coworkers, collaborators, that everyone hearing the same thing, having the same shared experience, was of value. Plus, when you have all of your speakers bringing their A game, you essentially, have an entire event of keynote level content.
Mm-hmm, absolutely, and I think that is a huge advantage. Going to a lot of events myself, both as a speaker and as an attendee, one of the biggest challenges is making the decisions about where do you go, who do you listen to. You've got multiple tracks going on, and you want to hear 5 different people talking at the same time, and you can't. And if you go with a team, as you said, you split up and you try to come back and collaborate with the notes, but there's a lot lost in translation. And I know for myself, that's one thing that I find of huge value is everybody's in one room. And I think it from my experience as an attendee, it also adds a better dynamic to the interaction between the attendees, because everybody has something to talk about. That's a shared experience.
That's a great point. Of the new people that you meet, you've all, you've got a built-in icebreaker that you've all seen the same thing. And, even from the speaker's standpoint, because our speakers really don't speak and run after they speak. They sit down among us and are part of the event and ask questions of the other speakers, and produces a real engaging dynamic.
And that's one of the things I recently wrote a post about. That one of the things that I really love about the event, one being a Midwesterner, that it's local. For me, it's fairly local. But one of the things, a mutual friend, Marcus Sheridan, was one of the speakers there last year, and that was one of his comments to me was, the atmosphere of the event is very Midwestern, and we're both proud Midwesterners. And what that really means is people are down to earth and approachable, and the speakers really pick up on that. And I had lunch with Marcus. I got to hang out with Jay Bear and Tim Washer and talk shop with them. Of course, got an opportunity to hang out, talk with you. Got to talk with Carrie O'Shea Gorgone about a number of things. She's a speaker this year. And that level of access where you realize, I think, as a marketer, one of the cool things that the speakers there are people, and they're there to help you out, and they're very approachable at this type of a format. And I've seen a lot of these people speak at other events, and it's not that they're not approachable, it's just that the way the event is structured, there really isn't that dynamic that you get at this event where you can approach them and they're sitting next to you, and like you said, they're asking questions of other speakers, which is really, really cool, and one of the things I know as an attendee I really, really appreciate about it.
Yeah. No, that's one of my favorite parts too.
So on the topic of speakers, one of the cool things about the event is, even though it's kind of center Midwest, you might think we're not going to be able to draw in these huge industry leaders, thought leaders, big names, which you have from the start. So tell us a little bit about who's going to be speaking this year at the event.
Well, it's once again a great lineup, and one that I'm really excited about. It does make me think back to the beginning, because Ann Handley, Chief Content Officer of Marketing Profs, co-author of Content Rules, has a new book coming out called Everybody Writes. Mm-hmm. And when we first started toying with doing this event, she was the first speaker that signed on. And I think Carrie Gorgone, who you mentioned earlier, kind of unofficially named her the fairy godmother of the Social Brand Forum. And, we worked to change it up each year. And, I had a lot of people last year on our second year that said, oh, wait, where's Ann? Yeah. And, so there was a lot of demand to see Ann once again. And she's back with us this year, kicking off as our opening keynote. She's also providing a pre-conference workshop. We also have Chris Brogan, publisher, CEO of Owner Magazine, chrisbrogan.com, prolific podcaster, social media thought leader that we're really excited to have there. Everybody gets a copy of his new book, The Freaks Shall Inherit the Earth, which I love because it kicks off, kind of sets the stage with a Guardians of the Galaxy reference. And I know Don and I are both comic book sci-fi guys, so that kind of says it in a nutshell, that it's the age of wonderful, quirky things like Guardians of the Galaxy. So that's an awesome book. Speaking of books, that brings me to John Jantz, other fellow Midwesterner of Kansas City, Missouri, not to be confused with Missouri, for those from the Ozarks region. But John, who is, as I said when we were doing I was listing off Duct Tape Marketing, his blog, website, company, book. And he said, "You mean the duct tape marketing empire?" And that's really what it is. And Absolutely. He has a new book out called Duct Tape Selling, which our first 150 to register get a copy of as well. So that's we're close on that one, but if you register right away, might have a few of those left. Jason Falls, who I mentioned before, who it's funny because we've actually tried to work Jason in a couple of years, because it was from that kind of explore model of bringing this top-level content to other areas that don't usually get that, and we've had some scheduling snafus each year, but we're honored and excited to bring him here this year. Joe Chernoff, Oh,
Okay,
go ahead.
well, actually, on the Jason Fall note, the rumor is that there's going to be some good bourbon there, so that's why Jason will be attending.
Where Jason Falls is, bourbon always follows. So.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to bring him a gift, he's a big bourbon. He loves his good bourbon. So,
Exactly.
and Jason again was one of those people I wanted to just quick give a shout out to, because he brought that event, like you said, to the cities where I got an opportunity to meet you. It's actually where I got to hang out with Marcus Sheridan, and so he's somebody who believes in bringing access to this type of content, these types of speakers. Super approachable, really great guy. So, but I cut you off.
No, I was just I was visually going through the other speakers. Joe Chernoff of HubSpot with some new data on the state of inbound marketing, which I know will be exciting. Carrie Gorgone, who you mentioned earlier, who works for Marketing Profs as well, actually hosts the Marketing Smarts podcast there. But I'm excited because she's also I think as she usually introduces herself, a recovering lawyer, and is going to tell all of us, great, somewhat legally challenged marketers, how to best interface with the legal side of all of this, which is a changing animal daily.
Mm-hmm. And to jump in on that, Carrie has actually guest lectured in the social media marketing class I teach at the UW-Madison. She's a fantastic speaker. So some people think, well, she's an attorney. You don't think of attorneys as being the most dynamic speakers, and Carrie is outstanding. I mean, she really knows how to make these topics. It's a lot of us as marketers don't want to talk about or don't want to think about interesting and relevant, but she also really educates you to the things that we do need to be aware of.
Oh, absolutely. And as I'm thinking about practical stuff, Amy Schmidhauer, who is really an emerging thought leader, also in kind of our Midwest Big Ten network. She hails from Ohio. Going to be talking about video blogging, what we're doing right here. So creating effective branding in HD. So I think that's what her session topic is YouTube branding in HD. We also have Darren Adams with Infusionsoft talking about end-to-end customer relationship, and finally Matt Ridings of Sidera Works in St. Louis, who's going to talk about I put it right with Carrie, of that interesting topic stuff of the culture that's needed internally to bring about the change that's often involved here.
Absolutely.
And then kind of the last piece that I kind of, it's easy to forget about because it's not an individual speaker. Last year we had Jay Baer's Social Pros podcast where we talked with Tim Washer. This year we're doing a live podcast, end of day one. It's my podcast, which is the Work Talk Show, which talks about how people get work done today. But as we're at the Social Brand Forum, we are talking with those that are in the social digital trenches at some great Midwestern brands, at Allianz. So obviously a very challenging regulated industry. So how's that happen? And then Pancheros, which is fun with social media and burritos. So excited to talk with Carrie Delaria and Reed Travis, respectively, there.
And one of the things that I think is really neat about this is setup too, is that you get people who are well known, like the Chris Brogans, the Jason Falls, the Ann Hanleys, the John Jantz, but you also get people who are emerging who do a lot of the boots on the ground. So you're getting the people who have the individual strong brands, but then you also have people who are working for B2C and B2B and have a different perspective in terms of day-to-day. So it really gives a great breadth to people who can attend, because if regardless of what you're doing in the marketing sphere, you're going to get content that's going to be relevant and salient, not just high-level stuff, but things that are relevant and salient to your day-to-day.
Well, and that is what we work to provide, really, and it's a tricky mix, but I think we've gotten there each year, which is that kind of the kind of industry thought leading, bleeding edge, what's next type stuff, but also some very tactical. I'm going to leave with some ideas that I can go implement right away.
And that's been one of the things I've attended a number of your boot camps as well, and I think that's one of the big takeaways from events that you host and that you put together is that I hear from a lot of people is it's not just this high level great stuff where, I've been to a number of those events where you walk away and you're just so inspired, so ready to go. And 2 weeks later, you've done nothing. And a month later, you've done nothing because it's too high a level to actually apply. And one of the things I really like about this is there is some of that nuts and bolts so you can go and actually act on this.
Well, it's those actionable pieces that are kind of like the footholds if you're, rock climbing. It's like it's enough to get started. And once you've applied that little bit from someone's talk, then you kind of keep the rest of it alive up here, and you're able to keep implementing.
Absolutely. So speaking on the actionable, that gives us some ideas of the speakers. Yes. Can you talk a little bit more about the pre-conference workshop, which is a new offering this year?
It is. We are a day-and-a-half event, and we thought, we're there, that morning as well. So we thought, what if we work to put a pre-conference on the front end of this? And again, instead of, trying to take this like every other pre-conference, how could we take something that people already like and give them a bit more of that? And what we did was, take that access and that actionable, the actionable outcomes like we were just talking about, and give a little bit more of that with one of our top speakers. And that's Ann Handley. So we're providing a special, small, limit to 50 people, pre-conference workshop where people can, it's a mix of a structured and unstructured environment. So it will be an overview from Ann, and I'll be there supporting that as well. And we'll kind of walk through kind of some, some scrappy principles that people can use. And then they'll also have time that they can, that you might not have in the big room to really, push back, ask some follow-up questions, say, this is, maybe that long preamble of what's the challenge at your company that you're like, I'm not going to raise my hand in the big room and say that. But if you're in there and we can really kind of roll up our sleeves, learn more about what you're doing, and take a look at that challenge that you might be facing and give some one-to-one feedback there.
And from my perspective as somebody who does consulting and coaching to businesses and organizations, I think this would be great for those of you thinking of attending if you can bring a couple people from your team, because it's a great way to get that, here's you and Ann Handley giving you specific feedback about your organization, and you can, again, as a group, think about developing some questions going into it and really thinking about coming out of it, how you can apply. So I think, if I'm in your shoes in terms of somebody who's watching this, thinking about, what's the best way to take advantage of this really cool opportunity, get a couple people from your organization or as many people from your organization as you can to attend that event, because the takeaways you're going to get, I think, are really going to, give you an added foothold, as you were saying, to launch some really cool stuff coming out of the conference.
Absolutely. Well, if you look at that too, at the varying ticket levels, which we can talk about in a bit, it's always the pre-conference is always about an additional $75, and I bring that up not to say, we're Midwesterners. We don't do dollars and cents conversations real well. Oh, shucks. But when you talk about that in terms of comparing it to a mini consulting session,
absolutely.
I think that's absolutely what it functions as. So.
Absolutely, and I think that the value that you get out of an experience like that, not, and this is again from a conference attendee standpoint, not just in terms of that one event, but what happens is in a group of 50, especially if you have let's say you have 4 or 5 people from your organization there, and you are going to remember them. And so the opportunity to start building a relationship with a thought leader, I think, is a real tangible, valuable benefit from something like that as well. So sometimes people will say, well, I might not be able to attend this event. And I get that. Again, I'm a Midwesterner as well, a frugal Midwesterner. But that's one of the things that you have to remember is that the access that you get in an event overall like this, but also in a small pre-conference experience, builds connections and builds relationships that can really, help you and your organization get to a level that I think is where people like this who attend these conferences, you end up saying, wow, the value I got was so far beyond that $75. I got a huge deal out of it. So
yeah.
And that will run from 9 to 11 a.m.
Yes.
On September 25th, correct?
Correct. Yep. And then people will have time to grab some lunch, and then we start back up with the whole big deal at 1 p.m.
And then why don't you tell us about some of the ticket options you mentioned just a little while
Yes.
ago? Some of the ticket options. So what's the scoop for those who want to attend?
Our back to the Midwestern work ethic, the early bird gets the worm. So our first 150 get an extra book, Duct Tape Selling by John Jantz. They also get a discounted price of $275, or that's again just a bit more. I think $350 would be $75 more with the pre-conference workshop. After that initial 150. The price goes up to $375, and then an additional $75 for the pre-conference workshop. But something that never expires and is not dependent on how many people have already registered is if you are a friend of Don Stanley. Being a friend of Don Stanley is a timeless is a timeless value. And if you remember friend of Don, FOD, and use that as your promo code, you'll get access to our special VIP rate, which is $225 for the event itself, and an even $300 for the event plus the workshop.
Excellent.
You can access all of those at SocialBrandForum.com.
Excellent. And that's one of those things that, the Midwesterners, once you become a friend, you're always a friend. So.
I believe some of our coastal friends refer to it as lovingly, I think, as the Midwest Mafia. So we bring all the states here to Iowa. We've got Missouri, we've got Ohio. I think we've got some attendees from Indiana, Illinois,
Minnesota,
Carrie from Minnesota. So we're I think we might even have some Nebraskans. So I think most of the states that at least Iowa touches, will be represented here.
Which is, again, and one of the final takeaways that I think is really important is that because people are local in that sense, you start to form relationships with people who are peers in a local area, which I think is great. Again, I love the big national conferences and getting to attend those, but people are from all over, and here I've been able to forge some business relationships with people that I've met through Social Brand Forum, which is great. Midwest businesses supporting each other and working together, and I think there's a neat value in that as well.
Absolutely.
So the dates for the conference again are
September 25th and through September 26th.
And it's going to be in lovely Coralville, Iowa, which is actually
beautiful suburban Coralville, right outside. So I always say I'm from Iowa City. I teach at the University of Iowa, so that's usually the landmarks people know. But we're just across the river at the Coralville Marriott Hotel and Conference Center there. There's a special conference room rate as well. So.
And that's all on the website. And the website where people can go to get more information to sign up is SocialBrandForum.com. So SocialBrandForum.com, we'll link that up. But it is, again, one of my favorite events. It's drivable from so many places, Chicago, Madison, Milwaukee, Minnesota. I mean, it's a fantastic event. The atmosphere is... it was one of my absolute favorite atmospheres because, again, that Midwest humble, welcoming warmth that you get, and you learn a lot of really phenomenal, actionable information. So I'm excited, and hopefully we get a Badger State contingent coming down. We'll bring some beer and cheese and.
I was going to say, if there's a Badger contingent there, I may have to recognize that from the stage by putting on whatever Badger Packer hat people might have. So.
Yeah, we'll have to have an Iowa guy. Maybe we'll have you sing on Wisconsin or do the jump around.
I would have to get Dean on stage to help me with that, but I think we could do it.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much. If there's any other information people want, I'm going to be doing some additional updates on my past experiences with Social Brand Forum, but otherwise check out SocialBrandForum.com. Well worthwhile. You're going to get your money's worth and more, and hope to see you in Iowa September 25th and September 26th.
That's awesome. Thanks, Don.
You bet.